As a decade of China power mining boom fades, Australia is looking towards other areas to keep its economic tide with China powering ahead. State premiers are bringing their sales pitch to China with increasing frequency, seeking to attract investment from the country. Join us this week as Cheng Lei sits down with Mike Baird, Premier of the Australian state of New South Wales, only on CCTV News, only on Biz Talk.
Welcome to Biz Talk. I'm Cheng Lei in Beijing. Today our guest is Mike Baird, the Premier for New South Wales, Australia's largest state by economy size. The state plans to privatise billions of dollars of infrastructure assets, something Chinese companies are interested in. The state is also looking at promoting Sydney as an offshore clearing centre for the yuan. Let's find out how China figures into New South Wales's plans for growth. Over the past decade, Australia's growth has been backed by a mining boom fueled by China's huge demand for resources. As China looks to transform its investment-led growth model, Australia is also working to maintain the strong economic ties. Such efforts have paid off. Bilateral trade swelled 11.5% to $136 billion last year. Chinese investments in Australia soared 82%. That's set to jump even further this year. But the ties were given a jolt recently when Australian billionaire tycoon and politician Clive Palmer made insulting remarks on national TV about Chinese businesses, attracting wide domestic criticism. Though Palmer has since apologised, the less harmonious note has unavoidably done damage to Australia's image of welcoming Chinese investment, something it's working hard to cultivate. The China-Australia FTA talks are back on again. Do you think we'll actually be able to get the deal done this year?
I'm very hopeful, and I do want to pay tribute to our Prime Minister. He's done a fantastic job, as has the President. I mean, I think we're strongly in a position where both countries are showing a lot of goodwill in this area. We're certainly very determined to play any role that New South Wales can to support that, because we really can see the benefits on both sides. Both economies can benefit, and I think that'll be a wonderful thing. So I really encourage those talks to continue, and New South Wales stands ready to do anything we can to assist.
One of the big deals when you came on board was the selling of the world's biggest coal port, Newcastle, to Hastings Group and also to China Merchants Group. Tell us what that deal means for New South Wales and what it means for Chinese investments in that area going forward.
Well, it's an important deal on so many levels. I mean, firstly, what the state needs to do and what my priority has been, first as Treasurer and now Premier, is getting on and building the infrastructure we need. Our state's heard a lot of plans about infrastructure, but very little of it has been delivered, and that's because the money was never found. So the best way to do it when you're at your borrowing limits, which we are with our credit rating, and we're not generating the surpluses required to build the sort of infrastructure we need, is look at your balance sheet. So we've looked at assets, we've leased them, and the Port of Newcastle was a very important part of that process, and that provides funds that we can then go away and invest in the infrastructure, which we do, firstly in the renewal of the city, and then other projects in rail and transport across the state. But it was also important because China Merchant Group participated, and a good symbol that provides a very clear indicator to the rest of the world that New South Wales is very much open to business. We're open to global capital, and those funds coming in, big opportunity, because those partnerships established, our employees now transfer into that new group. They've got a connection into China Merchants Group, which is a global operation. They've got operations around 20 ports. They get that experience and understanding that is imported locally. We use that to help to drive the efficiency and the logistics of the port, which helps the overall economy. So the funds come in, provides money for our infrastructure. There's direct networks or exposure into a global group that's going to help our overall economy in terms of efficiency.
So winning all around.
It's everywhere. It's almost like a project that is a win-win-win-win,
Yep.
and it certainly was. So we've welcomed them as part of the New South Wales family.
Something that's made headlines in China is the fact that an Australian politician, Clive Palmer, could have made those insulting and appalling comments on Australian TV. What's your position on that, and how do you dispel unease
that's been raised in the Chinese business community because of those comments.
Yeah, I mean, outrageous, offensive, totally and utterly wrong, and absolutely rebuked the moment they were uttered. The Australian government, I think, importantly, came out very strongly, and I think my sense here on China, there's a very marked distinction between the Australian government and an independent member making those sort of comments. I note that he has apologised. I'm glad he's apologised, and that's important, but it does not reflect the Australian government's views. It does not reflect my views or my government's views, and I think many in China understand that.
As a decade of China power mining boom fades, Australia is looking towards other areas to keep its economic tide with China powering ahead. State premiers are bringing their sales pitch to China with increasing frequency, seeking to attract investment from the country. Join us this week as Channel A sits down with Mike Baird, Premier of the Australian state of New South Wales, only on CCTV News, only on Biz Talk.
While China is rebalancing itself from an investment-led growth model, Australia is doing its own economic structural tweaking. Against the backdrop of a mining-led slowdown, the Australian economy is being propped up by a robust housing market, which increases the wealth effect and personal spending. GDP grew 3.1% on an annual basis in the second quarter, outpacing its developed economy peers. But signs of overheating in the real estate sector are starting to emerge. Ever-climbing property prices, especially in cities like Sydney and Melbourne, are ringing alarm bells. Australian Central Bank Governor Glenn Stevens has warned that investors should take care in the Sydney market, where borrowing is rising rapidly. He cautions that people should realise property prices sometimes fall.
Sydney is known as Australia's craziest property market, 200 suburbs with average prices over $1 million Aussie dollars. Are you worried? Are you scared about a housing correction?
Well, yeah, I mean, we obviously look at the words that come out of the Reserve Bank governor, and he has been relaxed. His rhetoric has changed a little bit. But I think the important point, yes, property prices have gone up, but if you look at where the leverage is, I mean, the leverage has certainly not matched that. So there has been, if you like, since the global financial crisis, that leverage has gone across and even down. So that provides some comfort, but I mean, obviously it's something that the Reserve Bank keeps its eye on because, I mean, a bubble doesn't suit anyone, and that has long-term economic consequences. So nice, gradual, consistent growth, which is where we have been for a number of years, is a good thing. But certainly, from what I'm seeing, I mean, there's not a concern of a bubble, but the Reserve Bank governor is obviously monitoring it.
As a decade of China power mining boom fades, Australia is looking towards other areas to keep its economic tide with China powering ahead. State premiers are bringing their sales pitch to China with increasing frequency, seeking to attract investment from the country. Join us this week as Channel A sits down with Mike Baird, Premier of the Australian state of New South Wales, only on CCTV News, only on Biz Talk.
New South Wales may be Australia's economic powerhouse, but that doesn't mean it can be complacent. Other states are competing fiercely for Chinese investments. Queensland and Western Australia have farming and mining as strong suits. Victoria is a close rival in education and tourism. New South Wales, a $500 billion economy, wants to bring in more Chinese investments to fund its spending, as federal budget cuts eat into finances. The new state premier unveiled the state's China strategy earlier this month. Instead of resources, which isn't New South Wales's main play, the state is focusing on export of services. It's seeking to attract Chinese capital to upgrade its public services and remain in a sound financial position. At the same time, the state is also promoting Sydney, its capital city, as the next big offshore yuan trading centre. It's counting on the robust Australia-China trade relationship, a time zone advantage, and a strong financial system to make that happen. Right now, only 1% of Australian trade is settled in RMB.
You know, nowadays you get so many premiers, state premiers, coming to China. It's almost like a never-ending parade. What is New South Wales doing to stand out among the pack?
Well, I hope you're not saying I'm boring you. That's just another premier coming up.
No, not at all.
I think what you get from me, what you get from New South Wales is you know, we understand China, we understand the significance of it. We were the first state to sign a sister state relationship 35 years ago. Indeed, the President's father signed that with the former Premier. So that's a lot of history.
That's fortuitous.
Well, it's a lot of history, a lot of opportunity. And I think that we're determined to provide an economy that's easy to do business. It welcomes foreign investment. Exactly the sort of opportunities I think China is looking to partner with. So I think it's a pretty unique time, a pretty unique place, New South Wales. The economy's moving, and I think China respects that. So I certainly expect what you'll see from us, notwithstanding you might see other premiers come here, very simple alignment of interests across tourism, education and financial services, big opportunities in terms of the RMB trading centre to grow trade specifically into China. I think those, as part of the largest economy in Australia, provide a very unique chance for us to differentiate ourselves.
And you're looking to privatise more, in fact, $20 billion more of infrastructure assets, and Chinese companies are, of course, very interested in that. What's the best approach?
Well, the best approach, I mean, we are doing the scoping study at the moment, so we're working out how the transaction will be structured, in what sort of sequence and what sort of time frame. As well, just as importantly, looking at the infrastructure, the money that we'll be spending and what projects and where across the state. And on both of those sides of the equation, I think there's opportunity for Chinese companies. So the expectation is the scoping study will be completed before the end of the year, which means that by the time we come to the election, the day after the election, we're ready to go. So companies will be aware of the timeline and the opportunities to bid and participate in that post the election, and then at the same time, the outline of the infrastructure projects that we'll be investing in will also be detailed. So, amazing array of opportunities for both sides of the transaction, but obviously for many, not only Chinese companies, but companies around the world.
China is New South Wales' largest trading partner, and you spoke earlier in the week back in Australia about your vision for New South Wales going forward, how it could deliver more in terms of tourism, education, financial services. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, wonderful opportunity. We want to be very clear in terms of our strategic direction, so everyone understood where we thought that we could bring value to the relationship, and I think that's the important part. This is a two-way thing. This is not just one state saying how do we maximise our opportunity. It's how can we work together to deliver joint opportunity. And I think those are the three areas that we see great strengths. The financial services, I mean, we've met with a number of key leaders, government and business, looking at the RMB offshore trading hub and establishing that in Sydney. That's something we're pushing very strongly for, because it'll provide an increased access to capital in Australia for all businesses doing anything to do with China. That'll make it easier for them. It'll make it cheaper for them in terms of their currency conversion. And that will have many knock-on impacts, I think, in terms of investment going forward, both from China to Australia and Australia back into China. So that's something that we're very excited about, and Sydney is very well positioned.
Where's that at?
Well, it's we've got a working group that's been finalised and announced as part of this trip to detail and get through every final issue that's on the table. We're determined to work through those because we so strongly believe in it so much. And we're very positive on where we sit, and we hope a decision is weeks or months away, because we're certainly ready to get on with it if we were given that honour. We're also focusing on the education, the two-way flow of education out of our TAFE system. We announced a direct automatic accreditation into a university here in China, and likewise another Chinese university having direct access into our TAFE system. That flow of students both ways is so important, and the more we can share experiences in the education sector, the more I think our future generation is going to be Asia-Pacific ready in terms of the challenges that come for the next generation. So we certainly see big positive developments in that. And tourism, well, I think that speaks for itself. I know that all your viewers would be desperate to come to Sydney, and I say come down.
Although I say come to Melbourne first.
Oh, no, I know that. I know you do say come to Melbourne, and you can go to Melbourne too, but you've got to come to Sydney first. But again, it's a significant part of the economy, and it does go both ways. And the more direct flights provides opportunities both ways. Last year there was about $1.5 billion spent in the New South Wales economy by Chinese visitors. It's getting up towards 500,000 a year. Our goal is to double those. And that double doesn't just mean economic benefit, it also hopefully means that Chinese visitors have a fantastic time and obviously enjoy the experience and recommend that to their friends and family.
And probably send their kids to school there.
Well, yeah, that's the very important part of our university education system. There's 57,000 Chinese students across it. And again, that's something that we encourage and think provides a wonderful opportunity for them, but for us. I mean, there is a joint learning that goes through that as well.